Honourable Nanaia Mahuta in reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I've listened to all the contributions in the House on this bill, the Resource Management Enhancement of Iwi Management Plans Amendment Bill, and I want to thank certainly my Labour colleagues for their contributions and practical experience in terms of the information we've heard as to the positive impact that this bill could have. I am disappointed that National in particular is not supporting the bill, but I'm not surprised. Well, in the debate preceding, Mr Speaker, government members stood up on that side of the House and said, well, but wait, in the second tranche of resource management amendments, issues affecting Māori will be well dealt with then. The difficulty with that is they failed to clarify how that would be done and in what way. And if the response is just to retain sections 6, 7A and 8, then frankly that's not good enough. This bill was seeking to normalise practices that have arisen as a result of treaty settlements, that has been as a result of moving towards best practice, and actually plays towards a landscape that we're going to, which is beyond treaty settlements, towards better co-governance, co-management practices in relation to resource management. And I think in time, on reflection, National will see that these small amendments are actually progressive and a positive way forward. I am concerned that many iwi aren't able to learn from the experiences of those iwi who have settled early. Ngaitaku was a very good example raised by Stevie Chadwick. They have got iwi management plans that are more than aspirational high-level statements. They're actually planning documents that have and can be integrated into the policy, plan and rule-making process, which in effect will lead to better decision-making about developments, protection of areas, natural spaces, heritage reserves. Mr Speaker, the bill acts as a carrot and not a stick to lift the responsiveness of regional councils to recognise and provide for priorities set out in IMPs, in the regional policy statement, local authority district plans, and to ensure that policies and rules followed by the council give greater recognition in the planning regime to what's been expressed by iwi in their plans. It's a progressive and positive step, as I've said, and if anyone wants to talk about a step change in working with hapu and iwi in the planning landscape, then I think this is it. I regret that members across the other side of the House failed to recognise that in taking this step forward, the community and the public at large would have a better opportunity to understand how Māori perceive their natural environment and the planning challenges that result from trying to provide for that perspective, because it is difficult. I want to point briefly to the legal advice I received from the Office of the Attorney-General in relation to the Bora test. In particular, I'm quoting paragraphs 9 and 10, quote, arguably in placing greater weight on IMPs, clause 5 of the bill draws a distinction indirectly on the basis of race. This is because it distinguishes between planning documents generated by groups that are predominantly Māori and those that include non-Māori. Nevertheless, in our view, the provision does not give rise to discrimination because it does not create any substantive disadvantage. In reaching this view, we have noticed that Section 6E of the Act already requires all persons exercising functions and powers under the Act to recognise and provide for the relationship of Māori and their culture and traditions with their ancestral lands, water sites, wāhi tapu and other taonga. This provision needs to be read with Section 7A and 8 of the Act. Section 7A requires decision makers to pay particular regard to kaitiakitanga, Māori stewardship. Section 8 requires decision makers to take into account the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. So the bill passes the Bora test. By virtue of including IMPs into the planning regime, we know that the process is better. In my first reading speech, I cited a small number of examples in my electorate that have frustrated hapu and led to this particular bill. It is about bringing the interests of hapu and iwi to the front end of the planning regime towards a more integrated response to deal with planning challenges so that communities and iwi can deal with it at a practical level. Māori, just like anyone else, want to preserve their natural environment, cultural and historical heritage, as they want to be a partner to the development of their lands and coastal spaces. The bill is about finding a practical solution to a shared future and integrated resource management. They are largely aspirational statements, but they can be much more than that. The bill will set a pathway for greater recognition that they should and can be integrated into the planning process at a local government level. Mr Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The noes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
58 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
42 votes in favour.
Green Party.
9 votes in favour.
ACT New Zealand.
5 opposed.
Māori Party.
Eri mga pōti tautoko.
Progressive.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote opposed.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 57, the noes are 64. The motion is not agreed to. Call on members' order of the day number 2.
Ethical Investment, Crown Financial